Hello everyone and welcome to a new video from Your Overwatch. I'm Eddie the Chump and today we're going to be replying to some of your guys' most interesting and thought-provoking comments from this last week. Now a lot has happened since last Tuesday and it can be argued the game will change more than it ever has before once this new PTR patch comes to the live servers. A new hero, Super Junkrat, McCree Deadeye doing 18,000 damage, there's a lot to talk about. Plus, Jeff has hinted role queue is more likely than ever to be an actual thing at some point, so there's a lot of discussion to be had. The first topic we're going to cover is the new hero Baptiste. There were numerous comments left on various videos that argue that he's overpowered, or even game-breaking. Path, Sheth and Doomy McBoomy both share this sentiment. Ghoul Goth goes into a little bit more detail when they say Immortality Field might be the best support ability in the entire game and that adjustments to its cooldown will probably be needed. I'm assuming they meant by that it will have to be made longer. I totally understand this sentiment. At first glance, Immortality Field does look to be super obnoxious. I had a similar response to it myself. What I thought the game certainly did not need was another ability to stop people dying. That's why Goats is so good in the first place, and why at the top level at least, playing damage apart from in very specific circumstances is seen as futile. However, upon further reflection, I think a number of things are at play here. Firstly, Immortality Field looks outrageous when both teams have one. Baptiste comps versus Baptiste comps arguably makes the ability look way stronger than it actually is, and this is a natural consequence of a new hero being released and everyone trying to play him to find out where he's good and where he's not. The thing to remember about Immortality Field is that it's a very sharp ability on a very long cooldown. There are certain scenarios where not playing Baptiste will give you an advantage versus a team that is, and I'll explain why. If the Baptiste team does not get big value out of the Immortality Field, then his mid game is actually kind of weak compared to some other supports. Discord, for example, despite its nerf, will get value as long as the Zen is alive. Anna and Mercy's healing are more dexterous than Baptiste. I personally think people way overhype his healing actually. Exactly how does Baptiste heal a Pharah? He doesn't is the short answer. Likewise, hitting a friendly Genji while he's zipping around is more difficult with him than virtually any other support. Immortality Field protection is also very susceptible to crowd control. The boop mechanics have completely changed in the latest patch, making them much more potent, and the radius of its cover is not enough to protect you from being displaced out of it quite easily. Sure, it looks outrageous when it saves a whole team from a grab combo, but it's hackable, shootable, and doesn't cleanse you from status effects. Anti-nading a bunch of people in its radius is very strong. Chayton Snyder compares it directly to Mercy Res to make the argument being able to stop team wipes every 20 seconds is too good, as Res is so easily interruptible by comparison and on a longer cooldown. Well, to this I would say, firstly, Immortality Field doesn't actually bring people back from the dead. Being alive on low health and coming back from the grave are two very different things. They're both counterable, but Mercy has other things in her kit that can be used all the time that Baptiste does not. The way her damage amp interacts with projectiles has been improved, and just being able to pocket a hero like Pharah or Junkrat could also be as game-changing as Immortality Field, because Junkrat especially is about to be super scary. Rezzing that one hero that can carry entire fights could be a huge impact play in a similar way to stopping a team wipe is in reverse. I think we will start to see where Baptiste is good and at where he really lacks in the coming weeks, and I don't believe he's so overpowered nothing else can be run. Sombra's kit destroying all his utility is just one example of plays that people can make to stop him. If that happens, what is Baptiste really doing? Not a lot. Next up, we're going to talk role queue. In the videos I made covering the topic, I noted how you guys had a lot to say, so we're going to discuss a few key points that you guys raised here. Dennis Field basically says, I like the idea of role queue, but having it would remove some depth the game has, like triple tank, triple support. That is arguably true, but I'd counter with, only the very top level can even play a 3-3 Goats comp properly. I'd argue most people play 2-2-2 anyway, and that Blizzard's data on the back end would back that up. Lock 2-2-2 would therefore only affect this kind of comp flexibility for a tiny percentage of people, whereas a lot of the player base would benefit from the added structure, particularly if you also factor in separate SRs for each role, which Jeff said would definitely be a thing if they do role queue. One of the worst realities of Overwatch Ranked currently, whereby people play off-role on something they're not actually at the match's rank for, can often create likely loss situations. In Lock 2-2-2, that would be far less of a significant factor. The biggest plus though is that people would actually be playing on what role they wanted far more often, so I think it's a trade-off between ultimate freedom, which creates problems we all know intimately well, having played that way for so long, and being more accurately ranked, being put in matches with more agency over what we want to play, and the game being easier to balance from the dev's point of view. Now, Space Penguin raises an interesting point. To summarize, Locked 222 wouldn't allow players to take over a role mid-game if someone is not performing. Perhaps there should be a role trade mechanic mid-game at half-time. I hadn't actually thought of that, and yes, it is true that in a locked system, if someone is not playing well, there's not the flexibility in that system to solve that problem by changing things up. I wouldn't be opposed to a voluntary role trade system at half-time, but then how would the game rank you if you won? Would your tank rank increase if you started as that but traded halfway through onto DPS and won the match? It's hard to figure these things out, as I'm sure Jeff would tell you if you asked him. More likely in my mind is the outcome of you can't win every game. That's true even now when players can do this. So role swapping wouldn't be a feature. At least you'd be playing in a match where everybody understands the terms of engagement before they start and in roles they're comfortable on. My big worry and hope is pointed out by Solar when he effectively says, I want the roles to reflect more what the actual roles are in high level play. Main tank, off tank, hit scan DPS, projectile DPS, main healer, off healer. One of the hardest things to grasp about Overwatch is that it's not enough to just be able to play a handful of heroes across different roles. In pro play, where actual Overwatch gets played, the roles are much more strict than, say, I play healer, and by that I mean Moira and Zen. That's not really a thing. Pro players have to sharpen their skill sets more than general players do. Lord Jonak, for example, plays flex support. Zen, Ana, and now likely Baptiste, whereas his teammate Animo will play Mercy, Lucio, and Moira as the main support player. The game is too hard to learn all these heroes to the required level for the pros, so they specialise. One thing a Lock 222 would not stop is getting two Ana mains on one team. I can tell you from experience what that likely results in is a team playing Ana Zen, which is trash in most cases, especially if you have two tanks like Ryan and Zarya. I would like the roles to better reflect how serious Overwatch is played, because then as players we'd get a lot more accustomed to some fundamental principles that have been ignored forever. I'll be real, I don't expect that to be a reality. I think Lock 222 will be seen as restrictive enough by Blizzard, and they won't further subdivide the categories that players can choose from. Say role queue goes live tomorrow, you will for certain get into matches where you have no main tank player, so Zarya Roadhog gets played. Likewise, you will get games where your two DPS slots are taken up by Sim and Torb. Why I don't think that's a problem is because ranked right now has far more potential for bad comps and trash games. Those examples I gave can be a reality, even combined into one horror show, and you still might not have any healer at all. Role queue will never be perfect, and it does have its compromises for sure, but more games will be playable, there will be less wasted time, we'll have more fun overall, I'm 110% certain of that. Next up, I'm going to deal with one specific comment about the Junkrat buff, as it really struck a chord with me. James Heath reacted to the news thusly, I'm paraphrasing him but the sentiment is the same: the Junkrat buff is lazy balancing, the majority of players are going to have to deal with a change that's only intended for the top level, making their games a lot worse. Obsessing with correcting things for the Overwatch League is a detriment to the quality of the overall game. There are parts of this that I do actually agree with. I know FREEDO made similar points in yesterday's video too. I'm worried about the Junkrat buff, and I am also suspect of balance changes that are very pointedly directed at solving one issue. People bunch up with goats, nothing dies, let's make the hero that punishes that super strong. It's also not the first attempt that they made. The Reaper lifesteal buff, which they just walked back on the PTR, was very similar. It was designed to get pros to pick something other than goats and punish that comp, but I think it's fair to say that that completely failed. What did happen is that Reaper, already strong at lower levels, became even better in that context. I find it very hard to argue that the same won't happen with Junkrat. At the pro level, the nerfing of Lucio's speed ability is also a reason why Junkrat will prosper. As FREEDO noted, slower moving targets, easier grenade spams to hit. But in ranked, where nobody outside of GM could even play goats properly, nobody plays Lucio anyway. What's going to happen to the slow Zen, Ana, Rhine, Zarya comps that still get played to this day, even in high diamond? They're going to get farmed is the answer. For a lot of players, Junkrat is going to be too strong, perhaps even worse than how strong Pharmacy has been traditionally. I like to model balancing like directing a ship. If you are off course, you make adjustments, but any adjustment you make is subject to the magnitude of distance. You turn your ship 2 degrees one way. Over a long enough travel distance, that 2 degrees garners a huge change in direction. The difference between the effect at pro level and lower ranks is like that travel distance. Junkrat wasn't turned by 2 degrees either, it was almost an about turn, designed to immediately affect the course of the game. Imagine what that's going to do in gold games. I shudder to think. I do, however, disagree that it's lazy balancing. I don't think anything Blizzard does is lazy. I think desperate is a better word, if a little bit unkind. The multiple meta problem is nothing new. We've talked about it at length on this channel. The game just isn't the same at all ranks. I have empathy for Blizzard in that keeping all these disparate threads together is almost impossible, but trying to square everything away in patch I don't think is the answer anymore. Other options like hero bans surely have to be explored, otherwise there will always be something in the game that looks okay at one level only to break it at another. I wouldn't be surprised if Blizzard have to tune Junkrat back at some point, just like they did Reaper for the sake of most of the player base, but that still leaves the pro level with a problem of what to do about goats. It's a mess. Traditional solutions aren't working anymore. A new leaf needs to be turned, at least in my opinion. And that's about it for today's video, guys. I really hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please don't forget to leave a rating. As this format is all about interaction with viewers, go ham in the comment section below. Do you think Baptiste is broken? What would you do about Junkrat? I look forward to reading your feedback as always. If you never want to miss another video of ours again, please click the bell icon next to the subscribe button on our channel to join the notification squad. You'll be in great company. And finally, please follow the Your Overwatch Twitter. It's where you can find updates about new videos and other cool stuff. I've been Eddie the Chump, and until next time,